She was taken as a captive into a Comanche camp, but no one could have predicted what would happen when she crossed paths with the chief's paralyzed son. Their bond sparked something that would shake everyone around them. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The scorching Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the arid plains of Comanche territory in the summer of 1867. Chief Running Elk stood tall on the ridge overlooking his camp, his weathered face bearing the marks of countless battles and hardships. His tribe had endured much in recent years as white settlers pushed further into their ancestral lands, but Running Elk remained a respected leader among his people. In the distance, a small party of warriors was returning to camp. Running Elk's sharp eyes recognized his trusted friend, Swift Arrow, leading the group. Something unusual caught his attention. They were bringing someone with them. A white woman with long auburn hair, her dress torn and dirty, rode reluctantly on a pony beside Swift Arrow. Running Elk made his way down to meet the returning party. The camp stirred with curiosity as word spread of the captive. "What have you brought to our camp, my brother?" Running Elk asked as Swift Arrow dismounted. Swift Arrow's face was stern. "We found her wandering near the burned remains of a wagon train. Soldiers had been there, but they missed her. She was hiding in the brush." The woman looked terrified, but held herself with dignity despite her fear. Her eyes darted around, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings of the Comanche camp. "What is your name?" Running Elk asked her in broken English. The woman hesitated before answering. Sarah Miller," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why were you alone?" the chief inquired. "My husband. He was killed in the attack. I hid when I heard the gunfire." Her voice trembled slightly. "I've been walking for 2 days." Running Elk nodded solemnly. He understood loss all too well. The white settlers and their soldiers had brought much death to his people too. "You will stay here until we decide what to do with you," he declared. Sarah's eyes widened with fear. "Please, I have family in Fort Richardson. They would pay for my return." Running Elk raised his hand to silence her. "That may be, but the soldiers have been hunting our people. It is not safe to approach their forts now." He turned to an older woman standing nearby. "Mourning Dove, take her to your lodge. See that she is fed and given water." As Sarah was led away, Running Elk's thoughts turned to his son, Little Wolf. The young man of 20 summers had once been the most promising warrior in the tribe, until a fall from his horse during a buffalo hunt 2 years ago had left him unable to walk. His spirit had withered like grass in drought since that day, and he rarely left his lodge anymore. Running Elk made his way to his son's dwelling. Inside, Little Wolf sat working on an arrow, his useless legs stretched out before him on a buffalo robe. His once bright eyes were now dull with resignation. "My son," Running Elk greeted him, "our warriors have brought a white woman into camp. She has lost her husband." Little Wolf barely looked up. "What does this matter to me, father? Will her presence make my legs strong again?" Running Elk sighed deeply. "No, but perhaps you could help teach her our ways while she is here. She will need someone to show her how to survive among us." Little Wolf scoffed. "And what can I teach anyone? I cannot hunt. I cannot ride. I am less than nothing." "You speak the white man's tongue better than any of us," Running Elk reminded him. "Your mind is still strong, even if your legs are not. Consider it, my son. It would be good for you to have purpose again." After his father left, Little Wolf sat in silence, his hand still working the arrow shaft mechanically. Outside, he could hear the normal sounds of camp life continuing. Children playing, women talking as they worked, men preparing for hunting. Sounds of a life he could no longer fully participate in. The next morning, Sarah was brought to Little Wolf's lodge by Mourning Dove. The older woman spoke briefly to Little Wolf in their language before departing, leaving the white woman standing awkwardly at the entrance. "You may sit," Little Wolf said in clear English, gesturing to a spot across from him. Sarah hesitated before lowering herself to the ground. "You speak English well," she observed cautiously. "I was taken to a mission school when I was a boy," he replied flatly. "Before I escaped and returned to my people, they said you're to teach me how to behave here," Sarah said, her voice tinged with uncertainty and fear. Little Wolf's eyes met hers. "And they told me you are to stay until the trouble with the soldiers passes. That could be many moons." Sarah's composure finally broke. I cannot stay here. I have a sister who needs me. She's all alone now. And yet, here you are, Little Wolf responded, his voice neither kind nor cruel, simply stating a fact. If you try to leave, you will die in the plains, or the soldiers will find you and kill you, thinking you are one of us in the distance. Your best chance is to learn our ways and wait. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. What choice do I have? None, Little Wolf answered honestly. Just as I had no choice when my legs failed me after my fall. He gestured to his immobile lower limbs. We must both make the best of the path the Great Spirit has set before us. Days turned into weeks as summer progressed across the Texas plains. The Comanche camp settled into its rhythms, and Sarah Miller found herself slowly adapting to her new reality. Each morning, she would join the women in their daily tasks, gathering firewood, preparing food, and tending to the constant needs of the camp. At first, her attempts were met with ridicule from some of the younger women, but Mourning Dove's stern presence ensured she was given the opportunity to learn. In the afternoons, Sarah would spend time in Little Wolf's lodge, where he taught her the Comanche language and explained their customs. Their early encounters had been tense and uncomfortable, but a reluctant understanding was beginning to form between them. No, not like that, Little Wolf corrected as Sarah stumbled over a Comanche phrase. Listen again. He repeated the greeting more slowly, emphasizing each syllable. Sarah sighed in frustration. It's difficult. The sounds are so different from English. And yet I learned your tongue when I was just a boy, Little Wolf countered, a hint of challenge in his voice. You had no choice, Sarah replied, echoing his words from their first meeting. A ghost of a smile touched Little Wolf's lips. True enough, and now you have no choice but to learn mine. Sarah studied him for a moment. In these weeks, she had observed how the other tribe members treated Little Wolf, with respect for his lineage as the chief's son, but also with a certain distance, as though his condition made them uncomfortable. She had noticed, too, how capable his hands were, crafting beautiful arrows and small carvings despite his inability to walk. Your father came to see you this morning, she commented. He seemed concerned. Little Wolf's expression hardened. My father worries too much. He thinks I dwell too much in darkness. Do you? Sarah asked boldly. His dark eyes flashed with momentary anger. Would you not, if suddenly you could no longer do what defined you? I was to be a warrior, maybe even chief after my father. Now I am nothing but a burden. You're not nothing, Sarah said quietly. You've taught me more in these weeks than I ever knew about your people. The stories you tell about your traditions, about the stars and the animals, they have meaning. Little Wolf looked away. Stories do not feed the tribe or protect our lands. A comfortable silence fell between them as Sarah continued practicing her Comanche phrases. Outside, they could hear the sounds of children playing a game, their laughter carrying on the warm breeze. I had a son, Sarah said suddenly, surprising herself with the admission. He died of fever before his second winter. My husband Thomas and I were traveling to Fort Richardson to start anew when... She trailed off, unable to finish. Little Wolf's expression softened slightly. The Great Spirit takes from us all, he said, but perhaps not without reason. That evening, as Sarah helped the women prepare the evening meal, she noticed Running Elk watching his son's lodge with concern. The chief had been kind to her in his own stern way, ensuring she was treated fairly within the camp. He eats less each day, Mourning Dove said in her limited English, following Sarah's gaze toward Little Wolf's dwelling. His spirit fades like sunset. Sarah frowned, thinking of the intelligent man whose sharp mind was trapped in a body that had betrayed him. She had seen how skillfully he used his arms to move himself around his lodge, how his upper body remained powerful despite his useless legs. Later that night, unable to sleep in Mourning Dove's crowded lodge, Sarah slipped outside. The night air was cool against her skin as she walked carefully through the sleeping camp. Without planning to, she found herself near Little Wolf's lodge and was surprised to hear the soft sound of flute music coming from within. The melody was haunting and beautiful, filled with a longing that resonated deep within her. She stood listening, transfixed by the raw emotion in the music. It is impolite to listen without announcing yourself, Little Wolf's voice called softly from inside. Embarrassed at being caught, Sarah pushed aside the lodge covering. I'm sorry, I couldn't sleep and heard your music. Little Wolf sat in the dim light of a small fire, a hand-carved flute resting in his lap. "This was once how I called to the spirits before a hunt," he explained. "Now it only serves to pass the empty hours of night." "It's beautiful," Sarah said sincerely. "I've never heard anything like it." "Sit if you wish," he offered, gesturing to the space across from him. "The night is long, and sleep often eludes me as well." Sarah settled across from him, the small fire between them casting flickering shadows on the lodge walls. "Why does sleep avoid you?" she asked. Little Wolf was quiet for so long that Sarah thought he might not answer. "In my dreams I can still run," he finally said, his voice barely audible. "I can still hunt and ride and dance. Waking is like losing my legs anew each morning." The raw honesty of his words struck Sarah deeply. "I dream of Thomas and our son," she confessed. "They're always just ahead of me on the trail, but no matter how fast I walk, I can never catch up to them." Little Wolf nodded in understanding. "We are both haunted by what we have lost. Yet we are still here," Sarah said. "Yes," Little Wolf agreed, lifting the flute once more to his lips. "We are still here." As he began to play again, Sarah closed her eyes, letting the mournful notes wash over her. In that moment, captive and captor disappeared, and they were simply two wounded souls finding brief solace in music and shared grief under the vast Texas sky. The next morning, Sarah was helping to prepare breakfast when Swift Arrow and a hunting party returned to camp earlier than expected, their expressions grave. They spoke urgently with Running Elk, who immediately called the tribe's elders to his lodge for counsel. "What's happening?" Sarah asked Mourning Dove, worry creeping into her voice. The older woman's face was solemn. "Soldiers," she said simply, "moving closer to our hunting grounds." Sarah felt a conflicting surge of hope and fear. Soldiers meant possible rescue, but also danger for the tribe that, despite everything, had treated her with increasing kindness. As the council meeting continued, Sarah made her way to Little Wolf's lodge with his morning meal. She found him already aware of the situation, his face tense with concern. "If the soldiers find this camp, there will be bloodshed," he said without preamble. "Perhaps I could go to them," Sarah suggested. "Explain that I've been treated well. Ask them to leave your people in peace." Little Wolf gave a bitter laugh. "The soldiers do not come seeking peace or rescue, Sarah Miller. They come seeking glory in battle against the savage Comanche. Your words would mean nothing to them." The truth of his assessment hung heavy in the air between them. Sarah knew from her own experiences that many soldiers viewed the native tribes with contempt and fear, seeing them only as obstacles to be removed from the path of white settlement. "Then what will happen?" she asked quietly. "The council will decide," Little Wolf replied. "But I believe we will break camp soon, move deeper into Comanche territory where the soldiers will not follow easily." Sarah's heart sank. Moving further from Fort Richardson meant moving further from any chance of returning to her sister. As if reading her thoughts, Little Wolf added, "This may mean you remain with us longer than anyone expected." Sarah nodded slowly, a strange resignation settling over her. "I understand," she said, and was surprised to realize she truly did. The Comanche camp moved swiftly following the council's decision, breaking down lodges and packing their belongings with practiced efficiency. By midday, they were traveling northward, deeper into the territory the tribe considered their own. Sarah rode on a pony provided by Mourning Dove, while Little Wolf was secured to a travois pulled by a steady horse, his face stoic, despite the discomfort of the rough journey. Sarah could not help but notice how the young warrior's eyes constantly scanned the horizon, his hands gripping the sides of the travois tightly whenever they traversed particularly bumpy terrain. His pride was clearly wounded by having to be transported this way, but no complaint passed his lips. They traveled for 3 days before establishing a new camp near a small stream fed by an underground spring, a location hidden within a shallow canyon that provided natural protection and easy defense. The spot was beautiful in its own rugged way, with cottonwood trees offering patches of shade and abundant wildlife visiting the water source. As the tribe settled into their new location, the routines Sarah had grown accustomed to resumed. Yet something had changed in her status among the Comanche. Having chosen to move the camp rather than use her as a bargaining chip with the soldiers, The tribe had implicitly accepted her presence as more than just a temporary captive. One evening, about a week after their arrival at the new camp, Running Elk visited his son's lodge while Sarah was there practicing her Comanche vocabulary. The chief's eyes moved thoughtfully between the two of them before he spoke. "The council has discussed your situation," he said to Sarah in his limited English. "You have learned our ways well. You work hard and do not complain." Sarah waited, uncertain where this conversation was leading. "We have decided you will be given a place in our tribe," Running Elk continued. "Not as captive, but as one who lives among us. Mourning Dove wishes to call you daughter." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. This was both an honor and a finality she hadn't expected. Acceptance meant they no longer planned to arrange her return to white society. I am honored," she replied carefully, glancing at Little Wolf, whose expression remained unreadable. "But my sister still waits for me at Fort Richardson. She has no one else." Running Elk nodded, having anticipated this response. "When the cold season passes and the soldiers return to their fort, we may find a way for you to send word to her. Until then, you are safer here." After the chief departed, silence hung heavy in the lodge. Little Wolf finally broke it, his voice unusually gentle. "This is a great honor. The tribe rarely accepts outsiders so completely." "I know," Sarah replied softly, "and I am grateful for the kindness shown to me, but I cannot help thinking of Rebecca. She'll believe I'm dead." Little Wolf was quiet for a moment before saying, "The path before us is not always the one we would choose, but it is the one we must walk nonetheless." Sarah looked at him then, truly looked at the proud warrior whose body had betrayed him, yet whose spirit remained unbroken despite his claims to the contrary. In these months of captivity, he had become something unexpected, a friend, a teacher, perhaps something more she dared not name. "Will you show me something of your culture tonight?" she asked suddenly. "Something I haven't yet learned?" Surprise flashed across Little Wolf's features. "Like what?" "The dancing," Sarah suggested. "I've seen the celebrations but never understood the meanings behind the movements." A shadow crossed Little Wolf's face. "I am hardly the one to teach dancing," he said bitterly, gesturing to his useless legs. "But you remember," Sarah pressed gently. "You could show me with your hands, explain the significance. I want to understand." After a moment's hesitation, Little Wolf nodded. "I will show you the eagle dance, how the hunter honors the spirit of the eagle for its keen sight and swift strike." He began to move his hands in precise, graceful motions, explaining how each gesture represented different aspects of the majestic bird. Sarah watched intently, her eyes following the fluid movements of his strong hands. Without thinking, she began to mimic his gestures, standing to add the footwork he described. "No, like this," Little Wolf corrected, demonstrating again with his upper body. "The turn must be quick like the eagle banking in flight." Sarah adjusted her movements, turning sharply as instructed. "Like this?" A genuine smile transformed Little Wolf's face. "Yes, exactly so." For over an hour he taught her the basics of the eagle dance, his enthusiasm growing as she proved to be a quick study. When she finally sat down, breathless from the exertion, the atmosphere in the lodge had transformed from melancholy to something approaching joy. "You have a natural grace," Little Wolf observed. "With practice, you could dance well at the next celebration." "Only because I had an excellent teacher," Sarah replied with a smile. As the weeks passed, their evening lessons continued. Sarah learned not only the eagle dance, but also other traditional Comanche dances. Little Wolf found purpose in teaching her, his eyes gradually regaining some of their former spark, as he shared the cultural heritage he had once thought lost to him. One evening, after a particularly successful lesson, where Sarah had mastered a complex sequence, she noticed Little Wolf watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "What is it?" she asked, settling beside him. "I was thinking that perhaps the Great Spirit does not always take without giving something in return," he said thoughtfully. "My legs were taken, but you were brought here, and through you, I can see the dances of my people continue." His words touched something deep within Sarah. "And though I lost my family, I found—" She hesitated, unsure how to complete the thought. "A new beginning?" Little Wolf suggested softly. "Yes," she agreed, their eyes meeting in the dim firelight. A new beginning. The following day, the camp buzzed with preparations for an autumn celebration, a giving of thanks for the successful summer hunts that had filled their food stores for the coming winter. Women worked preparing special dishes while men readied themselves for the ceremonial dances that would honor the spirits of the animals who had given their lives to sustain the tribe. Sarah helped Mourning Dove with the food preparations, listening to the older woman explain the significance of each dish in her improving Comanche. As evening approached, Mourning Dove presented Sarah with a dress she had been secretly working on, beautifully crafted buckskin adorned with intricate beadwork in patterns of blue and white. "For you," Mourning Dove said proudly, "to wear at celebration." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she accepted the gift. "Thank you," she said in Comanche, embracing the woman who had become like a mother to her. As darkness fell, the tribe gathered around a large central fire. Drums began to beat a hypnotic rhythm as the first dancers took their places. Sarah sat with Mourning Dove, watching the spectacle with newfound understanding thanks to Little Wolf's teachings. She searched the gathering for him and spotted him sitting slightly apart, his face illuminated by the firelight, as he watched the dancers with a mixture of appreciation and longing. Without conscious decision, Sarah rose and made her way to his side. "Will you watch me dance?" she asked quietly. Little Wolf looked up at her in surprise. "You wish to dance tonight? Before the tribe?" "The eagle dance," she nodded. "If you think I'm ready." A complex emotion crossed his face. "You are ready," he confirmed. "But why?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because through your teaching, both our spirits can dance tonight." She approached Running Elk and spoke to him briefly in Comanche. The chief's eyebrows raised in surprise, but he nodded his permission. As the current dance ended, Running Elk raised his hand for attention and announced something to the tribe. All eyes turned to Sarah as she took her position near the fire. The drums began again, a different rhythm this time, the one Little Wolf had taught her for the eagle dance. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, centering herself, then began to move. Her body followed the patterns Little Wolf had so carefully shown her, her arms extending like great wings, her feet moving precisely through the steps that told the ancient story of the eagle's hunt. The tribe watched in stunned silence at first, then with growing appreciation, as they recognized the traditional movements being performed by the white woman. Sarah kept her eyes on Little Wolf as she danced, drawing strength from his encouraging gaze. His face shone with an emotion she had never seen there before, pride mingled with something deeper, more profound. When the dance ended, there was a moment of complete silence before the tribe erupted in appreciative calls and drum beats. Running Elk approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder in approval. But it was Little Wolf's reaction that Sarah sought. She made her way back to him, her heart pounding from exertion and emotion. "You have honored my teaching," Little Wolf said, his voice thick with feeling. "You have honored our ways." In that moment, something shifted between them, a barrier falling away, a new understanding taking root. Sarah saw not a broken warrior, but a man of strength and wisdom who had given her the precious gift of his cultural heritage. And in her, Little Wolf saw not a captive from an enemy people, but a woman of courage who had embraced his teachings and brought his passion for the dance back to life through her movements. As the celebration continued around them, they remained side by side, their shoulders nearly touching, watching the flickering flames and feeling the rhythm of the drums like a shared heartbeat between them. Winter descended on the plains, bringing biting winds and occasional snow that blanketed the Comanche camp in pristine white. The tribe's activities turned inward during these cold months, time for storytelling, crafting, and passing wisdom to the younger generation. Sarah had fully settled into tribal life, her status evolving from captive to adopted daughter of Mourning Dove, to a woman who had earned respect through her dedication to learning Comanche ways. Her relationship with Little Wolf had deepened as well, though neither spoke openly of the feelings growing between them. They spent most evenings together, with Little Wolf teaching Sarah the rich oral history of his people, and Sarah sharing stories from her own culture. Their conversations often continued late into the night, their voices low murmurs in the warmth of his lodge, while winter winds howled outside. One particularly cold evening, as Sarah stoked the fire in Little Wolf's lodge, she noticed him grimacing as he shifted position. "Your legs are paining you?" she asked, setting aside the firewood. He nodded reluctantly. The cold makes them ache, though I cannot feel them. It is strange. Pain in a place that has no feeling. Sarah moved to his side. In the white settlements, we sometimes use heated stones wrapped in cloth to ease aches. May I try that for you? Little Wolf hesitated before nodding his consent. Sarah placed several smooth river stones near the fire's edge. While they heated, she gathered some of the soft rabbit furs that lined his sleeping area. My grandmother had a similar condition after a stroke took the use of her right side, Sarah explained as she worked. She said the warmth helped the muscles relax even when she couldn't control them. When the stones were hot enough, she carefully wrapped them in the furs and placed them gently against Little Wolf's legs. His expression remained stoic, but she could see some of the tension leaving his shoulders as the heat penetrated. "Better?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. "Thank you." Sarah sat back on her heels, studying his face in the firelight. Over these months, she had memorized every line of his strong features. The proud nose, the high cheekbones, the dark eyes that revealed far more than he ever spoke aloud. "I have been thinking," Little Wolf said suddenly, breaking her reverie, "about what happens when spring comes." Sarah's heart beat faster. Spring meant warmer weather, which meant the possibility of her returning to white society as Running Elk had suggested months earlier. "My father believes it may be possible to arrange for you to send word to your sister," he continued, "perhaps even to meet her at a neutral location." "Oh," Sarah said softly, a complex mixture of emotions washing over her. The thought of seeing Rebecca again brought joy, but the idea of leaving the tribe, of leaving Little Wolf, created an unexpected ache in her chest. Little Wolf watched her carefully. "Is this not what you want?" "I don't know anymore," she admitted honestly. 6 months ago, all I wanted was to escape, to return to my old life, but now, he prompted when she fell silent. "Now I'm not certain where I belong," she finished. "Rebecca is my only blood family, but here I have found—" She struggled to find the words. "What have you found, Sarah Miller?" Little Wolf asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Purpose, respect, connection. Things I never truly had in my life with Thomas, despite him being a good husband." She paused, gathering courage. "And I have found you." The firelight flickered across Little Wolf's face as he absorbed her words. "I am not whole," he said finally. "I cannot offer you what a husband should." Sarah moved closer, taking his hand in hers. "Do you think I care about that? You have given me your wisdom, your patience, your understanding. You have shared your culture and opened my eyes to a way of life I never understood before. Your body may be broken, but your spirit is the strongest I have ever known." Little Wolf's fingers tightened around hers. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that whatever happens in spring, whatever choice I make about seeing Rebecca, I do not wish to leave you," Sarah answered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "If you would have me stay." For a long moment, Little Wolf was silent, his eyes searching hers as if seeking any sign of hesitation or pity. Finding none, his expression softened. "Since the day I fell and lost the use of my legs, I believed the Great Spirit had abandoned me," he said. "I thought my purpose was gone, that I would never be a whole man again, never have a wife or children, never contribute to my tribe." He reached up to touch her cheek. "But perhaps my fall was not an ending but a beginning. Perhaps it was the path that led to you." Sarah leaned into his touch, tears gathering in her eyes. "I believe the Great Spirit brings people together for reasons we may not understand until much later." As winter slowly relinquished its grip on the plains, Sarah and Little Wolf's bond continued to strengthen. She spoke to Running Elk about her wish to remain permanently with the tribe, and though the chief was surprised, he seemed pleased by her decision. "My son smiles again because of you," he told her simply. "This is a good thing." The first real test of Sarah's commitment came in early spring when a hunting party encountered traders who carried news that soldiers from Fort Richardson were still searching for survivors from the wagon train attack, believing some might be held captive by Comanche. "Your sister still hopes," Swift Arrow reported to Sarah. "They say she refuses to believe you are dead." Sarah's heart ached at the thought of Rebecca's continued grief. After much discussion with Little Wolf and Running Elk, a plan was formed. Sarah would write a letter to be delivered to Rebecca through trusted traders, explaining that she was alive and had chosen to remain with the Comanche. She would offer to meet her sister at a trading post that summer, if Rebecca wished it. The morning the traders departed with her letter, Sarah stood watching them disappear into the distance, uncertainty gnawing at her. Little Wolf had insisted on joining her, his travois positioned so he could observe the traders' departure as well. "Do you regret your decision?" he asked as the riders became tiny dots on the horizon. Sarah turned to him, her expression clearing. "No, I will always love my sister and hope she understands my choice, but my path is here now." That evening, Running Elk called the tribe together. Standing before the assembled Comanche, the chief spoke formally in their language, his voice carrying clearly in the spring air. Sarah, understanding most of his words now, realized he was speaking of her and Little Wolf. "Today we witness something rare but beautiful," Running Elk announced. "A joining of two spirits who have found strength in each other, despite the hardships life has placed before them." Sarah's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. Little Wolf, seated beside her, took her hand in his. "My father asks if you will join with me in marriage," he explained quietly. "If you will become my wife before the tribe." Tears of joy filled Sarah's eyes. "Yes," she whispered, then louder in Comanche so all could hear. "Yes." The tribe celebrated late into the night, with dancing, feasting, and storytelling. Though Little Wolf could not participate in the traditional wedding dance, Sarah performed it for both of them, her movements graceful and sure, honoring the teachings he had given her. Later, as they sat together outside their lodge beneath a canopy of stars, Little Wolf presented Sarah with a gift, a beautiful flute he had carved for her. "Now you must teach me," Sarah said with a smile, examining the intricate carvings on the instrument. "I will teach you everything I know," Little Wolf promised, "and you will teach me to see the world through new eyes, as you already have." Sarah leaned against his shoulder, content. "Together we make a whole that is stronger than either of us alone." 2 months later, as summer heat shimmered across the plains, Sarah and Little Wolf traveled with a small party to the trading post, where she had arranged to meet Rebecca. Sarah's stomach churned with nervous anticipation as they approached the wooden structure where several wagons were already gathered. "What if she does not understand?" Sarah whispered to Little Wolf, as Swift Arrow helped position his travois in the shade. "Then we will give her time," Little Wolf assured her. "True understanding rarely comes in an instant." They did not have to wait long. A slight woman with hair the same auburn shade as Sarah's emerged from the trading post, her eyes scanning the surroundings anxiously. When she spotted Sarah, she froze for an instant before breaking into a run. "Sarah! Oh my God, Sarah!" Rebecca cried, throwing her arms around her sister. The sisters embraced tearfully, years of separation and worry pouring out in a torrent of words and touches, reassuring each other of their reality. When the initial shock subsided, Rebecca stepped back, finally noticing Little Wolf and the other Comanche. "You truly meant what you wrote," she said quietly, "about staying with them, with him." Sarah nodded, moving to Little Wolf's side. "This is my husband, Little Wolf. He has taught me to see with new eyes, Rebecca, and this is my new family." Rebecca's gaze moved uncertainly between her sister and the Comanche warrior. Little Wolf met her eyes steadily, with dignity and respect. "I love your sister," he said in clear English. "She has brought light back to my life when I thought all was darkness." Something in his sincerity seemed to reach Rebecca. Though clearly still processing the unexpected turn of events, she stepped forward and tentatively offered her hand to Little Wolf. "Then I thank you for protecting her when I could not," she said simply. As the day progressed, the sisters spoke of all that had happened in their years apart. Rebecca had married a kind shopkeeper at the fort, and though initially resistant, she gradually came to accept Sarah's choice to remain with the Comanche. By evening, they had arranged for regular meetings at the trading post, building a bridge between their two very different worlds. As they prepared to return to the Comanche camp the following morning, Sarah embraced her sister one final time. "Are you truly happy?" Rebecca asked, searching her sister's face. Sarah's gaze drifted to Little Wolf, who waited patiently nearby, his strong features softened by the morning light. "I am," she said with absolute certainty. "I have found where I belong." As they journeyed back to their camp, Sarah rode beside the travois carrying her husband, their hands occasionally reaching out to touch, reaffirming the connection that had formed between them against all odds. Behind them, the rising sun painted the vast plains in gold, illuminating the path forward, not the one either had expected, but the one they would walk together. "The Great Spirit's ways are mysterious," Little Wolf observed, watching a hawk circle overhead. "What seems like an ending may simply be a new beginning." Sarah smiled, her heart full. And sometimes, what appears to be a capture becomes the greatest freedom of all.